Last week, I was at a friend's house, and while I was sitting there with her, then a mentally ill homeless woman knocked on the door, and this is a woman I know from around, like I've known for many years from around the neighborhood, so this homeless woman asked my friend if she could sleep for a few hours at her house. So I think probably like most people, if this happened to the majority of us, then we have a very strong gut reaction. You know, mentally ill, a homeless woman knocks on your door and wants to sleep in your house for a few hours. Then probably the gut reaction is no. So my friend also had the same reaction, but afterwards, she said like she felt really badly about it, and she said maybe Hashem wanted me to do this chesed, this act of kindness with her. Maybe Hashem wanted me to push myself and do this act of kindness. So I want to tell you like what I told her. I think over the years I've learned some really, I think, important sort of like guidelines of doing chesed, some sort of advice, tips on choosing which acts of chesed to do and which acts of chesed to not do, without guilt. And so I want to share them with you. The first thing is, so let's say that someone asks you to give an example. Okay, somebody there's, God forbid, there's a mother who's sick in the hospital, and so someone's got to take care of her 4 small children every afternoon this week. Okay. So how do you know whether this is a chesed that you should do or not do? So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, how will you feel afterwards? This kind of chesed, that's a big chesed, to take on like 4 little kids in addition to all of your own, to take them on for the whole week, every afternoon. Like feed them, change their diapers, run around after them, break up their fights that they're having with your kids, disciplining them, dealing with them, everything. It's what Rebbetzin Heller calls a heroic chesed. And so Rebbetzin Heller says that on the one hand, a heroic chesed really has the power. Like if you're in a bad mood and you're depressed, doing a heroic chesed more than almost anything else can really pull you out of can really effectively pull you out of that bad mood and make you feel like really joyful and empowered and great. So Rebbetzin Heller says, so before you take on this heroic chesed, you need to think, how is it going to make you feel afterwards? Because it might be that after you like at the end of this week, and you'll say, wow, good job, Chana Jenny. You did it. You did a real chesed. You really helped this family in trouble. And okay, like things were a bit difficult. It was difficult, okay, but it was worth it, and it was good, and I feel good about this. This was worth it, and my family didn't pay too big of a price, and my marriage didn't pay too big of a price. It's Baruch Hashem. It was worth it. Or are you going to say, by Friday you're going to say, my house is a mess, and all of my kids got lice from her kids, and things are a disaster, and my husband's angry at me because everything's totally chaotic, and I'm exhausted and don't have any koach or energy for him. And try and look ahead and say, like, how are you going to feel by Friday about this? Okay? And I find that a very, very helpful thing. Are you going to feel like empowered and good job and you did it, you did the right thing? Or are you going to say, oi, why did I take on too much? I bit on too much, and now I'm suffering, my family's suffering, my marriage is suffering, everything's suffering because I made this bad decision. Okay, how are you going to feel about it? Okay? The second thing I want to say is like a very, it was really for me a really, really life-changing story that I heard from Rebbetzin Heller. Rebbetzin Heller told a story about how she said that she used to have her family used to frequently have a guest. I don't remember the exact details, but it's something like this. Her family used to very frequently have a guest, I think a female guest, and her kids really, really disliked this guest. It was a very, very difficult, this guest, I think it was a woman, was a very difficult person. The kids were just like, Ima, no more, we don't like this guest, no more. Okay, so then like, and they would host this guest, I think every Pesach Seder and often on Shabbat. So Rebbetzin Heller said to them, said to her kids, but we need to do this chesed. Like, who else is going to take her? Like, if we don't do it, she's just going to be like sitting by herself on Pesach night. We have to have her. No one else can do this chesed. No one else will be willing to have her. So Rebbetzin Heller ultimately went to speak with her Rav, and this Rav said to her, he said you should no longer host this woman, and if this is obviously, it's bad for your children, it's bad for your family, and you shouldn't be hosting her, and your decision that nobody else can do this chesed is a lack of emunah, a lack of faith on your part. And I think oftentimes, like, somebody turns to us and says, well, what can you do this? And you think, and so then you think of the consequences. Okay, this is going to be terrible, and my kids are going to be miserable, and my husband's going to be miserable, and my house is going to be miserable if I do this chesed. It's a really, really, really bad decision. But who else is going to do it? Like, nobody else is going to do it. But I think, so this story, I really think, for me, it really strengthened me. If this is not, if it's not a healthy decision for me to make, then God's going to somehow have to take care of this. Like, God will take care of this. Okay? And the truth is, in the past, like, since I've been I heard this story maybe around 2 years ago, and I just see like, when I can't take care of something and I set up healthy boundaries, then really it does get taken care of in the most incredible and unexpected ways. Okay? So in conclusion, I just wanted to read Rebbetzin Heller's general guidelines. I think that this is some smart advice on general doing chesed for mothers with kids in the house. Okay, so she explains. This is from her book Battle Plans, which is one of my favorite books of all time. She says, chesed, like giving charity, must begin with your own relatives. Doing the shopping for your parent, running an errand for your husband, helping your wife wash the Shabbos dishes, and helping your children with their homework are all acts of chesed. Many women would like to do chesed, but they feel burned out. If you have young children and or work outside the home, do not feel discouraged that you have no time for other forms of chesed. Are you listening? Taking care of your family is chesed. Okay, I'm going to read that again. I think this is really important. If you have young children and or work outside the home, do not feel discouraged that you have no time for other forms of chesed. Taking care of your family is chesed. If after taking care of your family you still have time for more chesed, consider inviting Shabbat guests, especially single people who might otherwise be alone, or Jews who would otherwise not experience Shabbat. Hosting Shabbat guests involves giving both on the physical level of a delicious meal and on the spiritual level of a warm, welcoming ambiance. Other forms of chesed that can be done without leaving your home are making phone calls to facilitate a shidduch, like a match suggestion, phoning your friends to sell tickets or otherwise raise money for charity, phoning a widowed or elderly acquaintance or a friend who is undergoing a difficult period, trying to match someone looking for a job with one of your friends who employs people in that field. Okay, so in conclusion, I have an amazing neighbor. I love my neighbors, and I've mentioned before that my neighbors, both of them, are marathon runners. And so they're my new neighbors. And so this past Friday, the wife in this couple, she did something phenomenal. She ran a marathon. She ran the Tel Aviv Marathon. And if you saw her, she's like this very petite woman, and she ran 40 kilometers, which I think that's about, well, I don't know in miles. That's really, really, really far. It's like a standard marathon. And I was just blown away by her. And so I saw her on Friday night, and I gave her a big hug, and I was like, Mazel Tov, that's incredible. But then I just thought about it. Like, I was like, well, like, my life as a mother, that's like my life. It's like, it's like a marathon's a few hours. Like, my life is a marathon. It's just nonstop. Like, taking care of the family and taking care of everything and taking care of all of my responsibilities and the house and the kids and my marriage and everything and all the errands and everything I have to take care of. it's a non-stop marathon. I think it's so important. Like, just like a marathon runner can't be like sprinting. Like, they'll never finish. And I really hope, I may have assumed that, like, that we'll be able to, we really in this marathon, we need to pace ourselves. We need to think, what are our priorities? Our priority is our family. Before we take on chesed other places, we think, okay, like, what's good for my family? What's good for me? And what's good for me is good for my family. Like, if I'm like collapsing underneath, a chesed which is too big, which is like I took on too big of a load for myself and for my family, so like everyone in my family is going to suffer if I'm suffering. So I really want to bless all of you Jewish moms to keep these things in mind, to think out what's going to be the end result. Is it going to be like sort of an overwhelmed disaster? By Friday you'll be like, after this chesed you'll be like an overwhelmed, disastrous mess? Or will you be like, good, I did it was hard and good job, okay? Secondly, and keep in mind, like, okay, like, if this is not a healthy chesed for you to do, then just keep in mind, okay, then obviously, Hashem has another destination for this chesed, and have the emunah that really that if it's not healthy for you, that Hashem is going to be able to find other hands to lovingly take in this chesed. Okay, I want to bless all of you Jewish moms. It's really exciting. Rosh Chodesh Adar. I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing week and an amazing month.